Everyone, Adam here, So Is Your Podcast. I have another interview for you today. I got to sit down with Reed Shusterman to talk about his newest movie, Bloodborne, available now on VOD. This is another one of those cool horror movies where somebody took something from their real life, something they were really going through, and built a horror movie around it. It's also kind of cool that I got to talk to Reed. We're around the same age, and, you tackle different things at different ages, and when you see things that are kind of in the realm of what you're also going through, it hits that much closer to home. Anyway, it was a really interesting interview. Reed's a really cool guy. Check out the interview. Check out Bloodborne, available now on VOD. Hey everyone, Adam here, So Is Your Podcast. I'm sitting down with Reed Shusterman to talk about his newest movie, Bloodborne. How you doing, Reed?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for having me.
Definitely. Thanks for coming on. This should be fun. The one boilerplate thing I like to do when I talk to creative people is ask them to go all the way back to the beginning of their creative journey and ask, like, kind of what was your spark or how you got started?
That's a good question. Well, there's an answer for this that I had been giving for the last couple of years when I was asked that. But then I went back to, I was going through some stuff in my parents' house a few years ago when I found something I had written when I was 6, which was a little like booklet, but it was for a movie. It said like movie on the front, but it was a book for a horror movie called Terror on the School Bus. So it's always been in me. I think the thing for me creatively that really sticks with me, 7th grade, I wrote a short story in English class, and I got up in front of the class and it was funny and everybody laughed. And I've just spent the rest of my life trying to recapture that feeling. I've never been as cool as that, and I never will be, but I can get close.
That's awesome. So you've been writing horror, it sounds like, for a long time.
This is in and out. Yeah, I was a little surprised to see the horror stuff went back that far.
Were your parents worried?
Well, I'm sure they were.
All right. So how did you get into directing? Did you go to film school, or did you just kind of pick up a camera and start one day?
I just kind of I came into it through writing. I always knew I wanted to write. When I was, in middle school, I wanted to write novels and stories, and then TV and movies seemed a lot cooler and more fun. And then as I started getting good and writing scripts that, I was proud of and could see getting made, especially with the low budget stuff, I always thought, well, if I am gonna put in all the effort to try and make this happen, because this is a movie where I did, it's not like somebody came to me like, hey, let's make your script. Here's all the money. I had to really make it happen. So if I was going to make it happen and have somebody do it and maybe fuck it up, maybe, make it bad, I wanted to be the one to do that. And I'm really, I'm proud of what we came up with, and I don't think that's what happened. But if it was going to go wrong, I didn't want to spend a bunch of time thinking, well, maybe I could have done better. So I and this goes back, I've made a couple shorts. I did have a camera that me and my friends would screw around with growing up. And it just sort of felt like the right next move to, especially for a real personal story like this one. It just seemed like that's what I want to, that's the amount of control I want to have. It's a good story, but I need to be there and I need to make sure it's the one I want to tell.
I like that personal responsibility you took on. Like it was your script. It's obviously important to you.
Exactly.
So to make the next step, I like that you said, well, I'm not going to put it off on somebody else, because then if it sucks, I could blame them.
Exactly.
I want to make it, and I want to make it my way. I love that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm really happy I did that, and it was a great experience. I'm really excited it's coming out finally.
Yeah, and you did mention that it's a personal story, and I was trying to find a way to ask without being too personal, but it does seem like a very personal story. So you don't have to go any deeper than you're comfortable.
I'm happy to tell you. In the movie, there's a couple that's struggling with infertility, and they hire a doctor to help them. And she's got some methods that send the story in a different way. But it didn't come from that particular experience of struggling with infertility. What the movie was really about for me was the fear of becoming a parent. When this movie was in development, and I was thinking, well, what am I going to write that maybe I can make? It should be a horror movie. It should be some genre stuff. But what really scares me? And my wife and I were talking about having a kid, and that scared the crap out of me. I was terrified of that. So I wrote this movie, and I think that's really why it works, is because I was able to bring that personal feeling into it. Certainly a week after the movie was greenlit, I had submitted the script to the producers. They liked it. We got the go ahead. A week after that, I found out my wife was pregnant and going to have a baby. So the whole production of the movie happened sort of simultaneously with the 9 months my wife was pregnant. I believe the movie locked about 6 weeks after we had our first child.
Wow.
So the whole process really mirrored it. And I think that really let me bring some of my personal feelings into it and add some of the texture and bring that out in the story.
That timeline is insane. Talk about being in the thick of it.
It made both parts of it a little less stressful. Because anytime
really?
I got too stressed about one thing, I could go get stressed about the other thing instead. And I was always stressed out, but nothing was able to get too far out of whack because there was always another thing that I had to be on top of.
Right. You could run from the reality to the fantasy. And then when the fantasy logistics got too difficult, you could run back to reality.
Exactly. Yeah.
How did your wife take the fact that you wrote a horror movie about becoming a parent as she was like, well, I'm pregnant, this is happening? So
she fortunately, we only had that conversation once. And fortunately, she was very calm about it, but she was great. She came to set, she watched rough cuts. There were a couple of things I covered her eyes for that I just didn't want her watching while my kid was inside of there.
Yeah, you don't need to see this for another couple of years.
But she was very supportive. And certainly by the time we were like screening like full cuts of it, she had seen it so many times, and she doesn't work in the industry anymore, but used to. So she's used to that kind of removed view. And I think she thought it was funny and flattering by the end of it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Because that could have gone the other way.
I think the fact that I have not quite turned out the same way as the father in the movie helps a lot.
There you go. You knew what not to do by your own character.
Exactly.
So how quick was the writing process? Because it seems like you guys were talking and then you're like, that is terrifying. I'm going to write this thing. And then your talking became reality and your thought became a script.
I believe the idea came in sometime February, March of 2019, and the movie was greenlit in August.
Wow.
And we shot in November. So it was a real quick process and turnaround. It was the producers at Epic Level, Cindy Rice and Dana Guerin, who I'd been friends with them for a while. They helped me with some of my shorts. And so this has sort of been a thing that we've been talking about for a couple of years and just need to find the right story. So the business side of it was mostly in place, which I was very lucky about beforehand. So as soon as we had the right story, and this was one that I latched onto, that my producers latched onto, just everybody who's going to be involved with the movie, as soon as we hit on this story, we all kind of knew, oh, this works in a way that, we had thrown some other things at the wall and nothing stuck. This really, everybody just knew it, and it went really, really well. And I think that we all could feel that I had a real personal connection to it, and it was really electric, and we all wanted to move while the iron was hot.
Yeah, that's it's cool you had that working relationship set up from doing shorts.
Yeah. Meeting Cindy, who produced my first short and then brought me into her company and has helped me with a bunch of stuff, that was a big step in my career. And certainly finding professional people to work with on small things is the smartest thing I did, because that's led to every big thing that's happened.
That's really cool. Did you know you were planting those seeds as you did them, or were you just kind of going with the flow?
I mean, I knew in the sense that, when you're in your early 20s, you're like, oh yeah, sure, I'm going to be Spielberg. Yeah, I knew. I mean, I knew I wanted to do that, but was it realistic? I don't know that I was really conscious about planting the seeds like that, but it seemed like the right thing at the time.
Okay, that's it's really interesting because it seems like a lot of people don't want to lay the foundation.
Yeah. And that's a lesson that took me a long time to learn. I was in LA about 7 years before I did that. And certainly I spent a lot of those years thinking, oh, I'm just one script away from the big time.
Your big break.
And I don't think there is a big break. I think everything's just a series of little steps. And I mean, yeah, but sometimes people get that lottery ticket, but that's not something you can build a life on or a career on.
Yeah, that's more of a gamble than a career.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I buy a lottery ticket every now and then just for fun. But...
Sure, of course. Everyone does. So your shorts, was that kind of the same process as writing a feature? You wanted to be a writer first and then decided, well, I wrote it, I'm going to make it.
Exactly. And I tend to write stuff that has genre elements, but is pretty based on a strong familial connection. This movie's about a husband and wife. My biggest short that I did is about a mother and daughter, and it's got all this fantasy stuff going on, and there's a sword fight, but it's really about this relationship. We had some people crying at some of the screenings that we had, which was one of the better compliments I've ever had in my life. But it's all based on this really personal stuff. So I feel like I have an easy into that as the writer. I really understand that personal stuff in the scripts. Not that there aren't fantastic directors who get very personal who don't write their own stuff. I just don't know any of them or hadn't met any of them at the time. And even if I had, it would have to be somebody I really, really trusted. At this point in my career, there are a couple of people that, if the right partnership came along, I'm not, trying to direct every single thing I write. But if I'm going to spend 6 months of my life writing something that I really care about, I probably am willing to spend another 2 years of my life making it.
Yeah, I feel like, as an outsider, of course, I feel like the writer-director thing is almost like a no-brainer. Like, why doesn't everybody do that? But
because it's hard as shit.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And directing, especially somebody like me who didn't come up through the technical side of it, there's a lot I don't know even now, having made a feature. I'm not somebody who can pick up a camera and get it to take this picture, that picture, knows how all the setting works. I know the words, I know what they do, but the most important thing is I know the feeling I want to get out of it. So for me, when I was on set, that was really the important thing, was having people who really knew what they were doing and letting them, working with them to figure out, how do we make this feel like this? How do we make this tell the audience this thing? As opposed to some writer directors and some directors who come up as DPs or editors or whatever, who they know how a camera works. They can take it apart down to the tiniest screw, but they might not have that storytelling chops. And you can end up with stuff that looks cool, but doesn't really have a heart in it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's what you're saying. Oh, sorry.
No.
Do you also do the editing? Because you wrote, directed, and then you said the movie was locked not long after your child was born.
I didn't do the editing. We hired an editor who, Leah Vrabilova. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, Leah. She's this fantastic editor who just moves a mile a minute and is so much faster than I ever could be. And editing's a very specific skill that I've done editing before. I like editing, but she can do things with it and take 3 pieces of footage and be like, I know you said you wanted this. Here's how what you want looks. Here's what I want to do. And isn't what I want to do so much better? And certainly there were a bunch of things where I would take the footage and do like, well, here's what I'm thinking. Like if she didn't understand what I was going for, I would take it and I would put exactly what I thought we should do. And then she knew what I was trying to do and could just do it, but 10 times better.
Yeah. Okay.
I do think editing is, I was very involved with the editing. I was right next to her for 98% of the process. But she really is somebody who did a lot of work on the movie that most people won't actually notice.
One of those things that when it's done right, you don't see it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And just was able to make leaps in the storytelling that I didn't see when I wrote the movie or shot the movie or conceived the editing.
Do you think part of that might have been you were so close to it and so involved with it for so long, you needed that objective eye?
100%. I needed somebody who could go in and say, like, yeah, that was your idea, but it didn't work. So stop and let's do something better.
That's got to be tough after, I mean, it sounds like it was almost a 3-year process from what you're saying.
Yeah, something like that.
So,
Yeah, it's hard, but I've always been a creative person that I love getting notes. I love making things better. A lot of creative people get notes about what people don't like and get very defensive. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a creative. I get a little defensive at first, but I really get excited about making things better. And I'm I'm a writer director. I have an ego, but I don't have such an ego that I think I know best. And if somebody has a better idea than me, I get to take credit for it, which is fantastic.
that's true.
If somebody comes up with a great shot or a great line, or the actor says, well, what if I did this instead? Or the editor says, what if we did this shot? Then I still get to pretend like it was my idea. I am the only one who knows how much of those were not my idea.
Still film by.
Exactly.
That's a really good point. Plus, it's cool that you can assemble the team and you're picking your team. So you didn't hire this editor because you hated everything she's ever done.
Exactly. She was excited about the movie and excited about working on it. And that's sort of what you look for in your whole team, is you want people who are hungry and professional and creative in their own field. You want a camera person who knows how to get the most out of their camera and who has a team around them that, even the person setting up lights, especially on a really small crew like this. We had 30 people on our crew, which for a feature film is very small. Every single person has to be coming with ideas and saying, well, maybe if we did this, maybe if we do that. And sometimes it's just like, well, if we plug in 6 lights, the generator's going to blow. So we can't do that. So how do we get the amount of light we need with 4 lights? And that's, one of the grip guys saying, well, if we did this and reflected that, and I don't know how to do that, but they do. And it looks great when they do it.
Your small crew, was that a COVID issue?
No, we filmed in November 2019.
Okay,
we had almost pushed until March 2020.
Oh,
and the extra prep time would have been great, but that would have really backfired.
Yeah, in hindsight, you might have been pushing it to now.
To about now, yeah. So no, it was just a budget thing. It was just we had a very small budget. We're shooting in LA, where crew is not as cheap as it is when you're shooting outside of LA and New York, basically. And we wanted professional people. We didn't want people who were doing their first feature. This was my first feature. So it was important to me that every department head had done a feature before, and that I really tried to be the least experienced person on set. I knew what I want from the story, but they know how to do their jobs. And that made my life so much easier.
That's really smart. You kind of build your roster and stack your team.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much better being the greenest person on an experienced team than the star of a inexperienced crew.
You're right. You could be the blind leading the blind.
Exactly.
For the shoot itself, how long was it?
3 weeks plus 15 days of primary shoot plus a day of pickups a couple months later.
Oh, that's quick.
Yeah, it was a very, very quick shoot. We got a lot done in the time. 12-hour days most days. We didn't have money for serious overtime. It's all in one location. So we were shooting, actually filming for about 10 hours every day.
And with just one day of pickups, you must have had a really solid layout of what every shot you needed.
Yeah, we knew what we wanted. We added a single scene, I believe, but everything else was just little pickup shots just to make the transitions work and really make some of the beats really hit harder.
Yeah, I'm always interested to see that, because it seems like, especially in the day of digital, it's like, well, here's the scene, let's just do it. Hey, try it again. Hey, try it this way. Hey, let's shoot it from over here. You can do it endlessly, I'm sure.
It's a hard balancing act, especially on a shoot that short, because it's digital. And so, you want to get through you can film as much as you want. It's not going to be like on film where it costs a ton of money, but you still have to keep moving fast. But the actors, especially, they love when they get to sit in the scene and do it 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 times. And so it's a balancing act of how much can you let people get loose in it and how much does everybody need to really stay tight and stay on the ball.
Yeah, with a shoot that fast, did you have a lot of time for like prep time or kind of like dry runs?
No, we didn't have too much. We did a bit of rehearsal, and certainly, uh, while camera was being set up for each shot, we would talk. I would talk through with the actors, but so much of the work with the actors comes. It's really 90% just who you hire. If you hire good actors, they will come to set prepared, and they will be 90% of the way to where they're gonna get. And it's a question of figuring out, well, what did I want? And what did they think they were supposed to do, and how much of each of those is correct, because the actors know the characters better than me. That's their job, is to really get in and live that. So if they're doing something different than what I thought, there's a good reason for that. And so then it's just finding, well, if you do that but a little bit differently and then do this extra thing, that'll get us to where we need to go. That'll take the story in an interesting way while still respecting the overall arc. So we would get a couple of dry runs. I would give some notes and run lines with them while they were getting their final makeup done. And then if we were lucky, we would get 5 takes before we had to move on.
Okay, it's always interesting to hear the whole process and how everyone kind of picks up the pieces and makes the whole.
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just, it's really a team sport. Filmmaking is such a team sport. Every single person on the set. I mean, PAs get paid the least, but in a lot of ways, they're the most important people on the set. They're the grease that makes all the gears turn. And so it's really every single person has to be on top of their game and ready to contribute at a moment's notice. And fortunately, we had a fantastic crew that all did a great job.
Yeah. To backtrack a little bit more, I mean, I'm kind of going out of order now.
Yeah, sure.
How did you go about the audition process?
We posted on Actors Access. We had 2 days of auditions. The first day, we concentrated entirely on our husband and wife couple, and read through about 120 people
In 2
total.
days?
No, for just one day for that role. It was about one person every 3-4 minutes for a long time.
How do you keep them straight?
What happens is they all kind of bled together except a couple. When you're watching, there will be 90% of them you'll know within, sorry, actors, about 15 seconds of them opening their mouth, whether or not they're right for the role or not. Some of them are making very bad choices, and some of them just make choices that aren't right for the role. And you're trying to, and then you can see a little bit how directable people are. But for the most part, you really just know when they come in. So we narrowed it down and we took very good notes and recorded it, so everything got watched again later. But we picked out about 5 people for each of the primary roles. And brought them back the next week to do chemistry reads with, we mixed and matched husband, wife, husband, wife, husband, wife. And when Rosie and Antoine were together, the people who we ended up casting, they were in the room together. It was hands down everybody's favorite pairing. Just not, the other actors all did a fantastic job, but they just lit up together. They just played off each other and were laughing and were improvising and were working together in a way that seemed really natural. And it was just, you just know when you look at that. And then, we talked to him a little more and hired him. Same thing with the other roles. Just sometimes people came in and you would just know that's the person I want. It's one of those things that it's hard to explain. It's just, it when you see it.
So because you created the characters and they were been in your head for so long already, it just clicks when it's a fit.
Yeah, when it's somebody who takes what I wrote and understands what I wrote, but then brings something more to it or expresses it in a way that the other 10 people who got it, but they didn't really have a creative way to express it. There'd be a lot of actors come in and do a really good job reading the lines, but not just the people we cast, but all the people who we really liked, they find a way to do more with it. To the scene is this and the subtext is this, but I think they also like this other subtext, this other theme, this other question. So they play it like that and they bring more to it than what I wrote as the writer. And that's I think how you get a really rich performance in the film is somebody who is really taking control of their role and making it their own, to the point where there was one line in particular that I had written for one of the climactic scenes for one of the actors to say to the other actor and he to respond, and they didn't like the line. I loved it. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was one of my favorite lines I've ever written in my life. And they didn't get it. And it was a busy day and we were doing a lot of stuff. And I stopped the production for 15 minutes trying to talk them into this line. And I don't think they sabotaged it on purpose, but no matter how many times I tried to get them to say that line, they just couldn't figure it out with their character. And they couldn't say it in a way that was authentic. Maybe a different actor could have done that. But then when we got into the editing room, I saw that they were right. That scene, the way they had played it, didn't go in the direction that line said. So when they said, no, I wouldn't say this doesn't work, I don't know how to make this make sense to me, they were right. And that's something I didn't see till we got in the editing room, and was happy to be wrong because they had given me fantastic performances.
That's really cool to hear. And it's man, sorry.
No,
it's cool to hear. And it's also interesting that it's kind of like a tip for new or aspiring actors to, elevate the material, but also know when to have some confidence in what you think.
Yeah. And I mean, I've met directors that would not have taken that well. I'm a very collaborative person, I believe. And I was, I did spend a lot of time trying to make it work, but when it didn't work, I didn't get angry about it. There are some directors where just you're going to have to figure out a way to make it work, but especially in an audition,
that makes sense.
Yeah, make big choices. Don't come in and do a cartoonish Russian accent for a character that is not written with a Russian accent when you don't speak Russian or have a Russian accent yourself, which I will never forget that one audition, but we did not cast that actor.
I was going to say that sounds a little specific.
It was a bold choice, and I remember him, but not in a good way.
He stood out, I guess.
But if you can go into an audition, and I know something I've done in every audition, or something that happens in basically every audition, especially if it's being recorded by a video camera, a lot of actors say, well, where do you want me to go? Like, what's the frame? And sometimes they'll be, just sit in that chair and read. But usually, I mean, even right now I'm sitting in a chair and I have, a decent box around me. The people who found a way to use the space and use their body and not just read the words out, that made a big difference. Because acting, it's not a play, and even if it's a play, you have to move. It's not a radio play. You're not just acting with your voice. You're acting with your entire body. And yeah, film is a lot of close-ups, but it's not just your face. It's your whole interaction with the physical world. And so all the actors who made an impression on us, and I think all the ones who got a call back for the lead roles, use their space in some way. They really moved and interacted with the physical world and with the chair or the fake prop or whatever that we gave them. They all did something with it that wasn't just holding it and letting it exist in their hand. They reacted to it. And so, yeah, make bold choices. Not too bold, but better to be big than boring.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's not anything I ever would have thought of as somebody who's, I'm just a fan of the industry. I'm not involved in the industry. So that's good advice for people looking to get into it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to eat up your entire afternoon, especially, you have not a newborn quite anymore, but you have a baby at home and everything. So why don't you tell everyone where they can find Bloodborne?
Bloodborne is out as of July 16th. It's on Amazon Prime for free streaming. If you want to pay for a rental on Amazon, that's also an option, but it's on Prime, so you don't have to. It's also on Tubi and the Watch Movies Now channel on YouTube and the Kings of Horror channel on YouTube.
Oh, very cool. And is there anything else you want to plug, like a website or your socials or anything like that?
I wish I had that, but I am not a social person. I will say, we will be rolling out on more platforms. I'm not totally sure when this is going to be out, and I don't know when the other platforms are going to be released, but over the next few weeks we'll be on iTunes and Google Play and all those other places where you might rent movies and stream them.
For people who don't know, Tubi doesn't require a credit card.
That's correct. I have just learned that this week. Tubi is ad supported. You just log in and you can watch anything on there and just watch a quick ad beforehand. It's really great.
Very accessible. Well, Reed, thank you very much. Congratulations on the movie. You seem like you really have a good handle on what you're doing and what you want to do, which is great.
Thank you. So, really appreciate you having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Best of luck.
All right. Thanks.
I'd like to thank Reed one more time for coming on the show to talk to me about his new movie, Bloodborne, once again, that is currently available on VOD. We have a lot more interviews, a lot more new movie coverage, a lot more everything coming your way, so make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Helps us grow our audience, helps us know what you want, what you like, and what you see, so we can deliver. Also, make sure you listen to So Wizard Podcast every single week, wherever you get your podcasts. So Wizard Podcast can be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get multiple monthly bonus shows. SoWizardPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, merchandise, videos, and more. We love hearing feedback, so drop us a note in the comments, leave us something on social media. All of our accounts can be found after the show and in the show notes. And on a more personal note, a good friend and I have an ongoing comic series out. It's called Social Studies. It's a slice of life comedy comic about the high school experience, all the insanity and ridiculous that goes along with it. We wrap all that up, write it like a sitcom, and jam it through the prism of the 90s cartoons that we grew up on and inspired us. You can check that out at socialstudiescomic.com. A lot of cool things coming soon in that realm, so check it out. Thanks.